the transfer window. Now, I want to know the best performers in the transfer window, the worst performers in the transfer window, and then obviously some dark horses. You want to kick it off?
Yeah, we'll start with the winners, I guess.
Sure.
The obvious one is PSG, and everyone's making a meal out of all of their free transfers. I think it's important to note that free transfers aren't free
Yeah.
because agents get involved. They want to slice. The players get sign-on bonuses. The wages of the players actually go up when there's a free transfer because they use it as a negotiating point, saying, you're paying nothing for this guy. Let's bump up the salary a bit. But obviously, PSG have had an incredible window signing
Insane.
all the stars in the galaxy. And they didn't sell Kylian Mbappe, which could be a win or a loss, depending on your perspective. Perhaps they should have cashed in on him, given that his deal expires next summer, given the ridiculous bid that Real Madrid put in for a guy with 12
How
months
much
on
was
his
that bid by
contract.
the end? I saw it.
It was
Was it going back and forth?
160 million euros was the bid, which is a lot
Money is
for a
crazy.
guy who's only got a year left on his deal. So arguably they should have cashed in on him. But keeping Mbappe obviously strengthens their bid for the Champions League title this season. Whether all these stars actually fit together in a functional lineup when you've got a lot of guys who don't like to do a lot of defending up front. And it seems a little unbalanced, but on paper, my goodness, what a squad. And obviously they're playing a little bit of a different game to everybody else because money is not really an object for PSG. They're just trying to gather talent. So selling Mbappe doesn't hurt them as much or not selling Mbappe doesn't hurt them as much as it would hurt another club losing him on a free potentially next summer.
Yeah, and I mean, those names are insane, right? Donnarumma, Wijnaldum, Messi, like Hakimi. It's just a stacked squad.
Ramos.
Would it be? Oh yeah, you forgot about Sergio Ramos, overshadowed by Lionel Messi. Would it be a success? Say Mbappe leaves for free. They don't cash in on him, but they've won the Champions League at the end.
I think absolutely. Given what PSG's objectives are, and their objective is to win the Champions League as quickly as possible, no matter it doesn't hemorrhage their financial future. Financial fair play rules from UEFA have been shown to be toothless based on the Manchester City case, so they don't really have to worry about that anymore. So they're just success, and if Mbappe in the next 12 months can be persuaded that playing with Messi and Neymar is the golden meal ticket, then maybe he'll stay. Maybe he'll re-sign. He did grow up in Paris, of course, and he grew up a PSG fan. So we'll see what happens on that front. But PSG obviously have increased their profile massively, which is arguably the main objective of the club, given the backing and the sort of sports washing project that's going on there.
I mean, look, the Jordan brand collaboration is one. You know, you're talking about now a brand transcending a football club, going into all these like fashion spaces and cultural spaces. So definitely PSG, they were on my list for winners, but I also think, and I might be a bit biased, Manchester United, big winners of the window too. They got Ronaldo, which is an obvious one, but Jadon Sancho, who they've been courting for a couple of seasons now, and Rafael Varane, who I think is going to be just a massive upgrade, World Cup winner, Champions League winner, partnering Harry Maguire. I'm a big fan of Lindelof, but I think just even watching Varane's debut, just how much more composed and calm he was, makes such a big difference for the squad.
Well, I gave my thoughts on the Ronaldo transfer last week, so I won't go into that again. I would say it's been a good window for United, but they didn't get that defensive midfielder that they were 100%. After. Sale going to Chelsea instead of United on deadline day is the big L. So I would say Chelsea are winners in this transfer window. They addressed their biggest shortcoming. It's harsh to criticize the team that won the Champions League last season, but they didn't have a reliable goal scorer up front. Timo Werner's problems with his finishing have been well documented.
Poor Timo.
They decided eventually that Tammy Abraham and Olivier Giroud weren't quite up to spec for Chelsea. So they've spent a lot of money, 115 million euros on Romelu Lukaku, but he is a proven goal scorer. He's already started well. He's on a mission to prove himself at Chelsea at his second attempt. And, you know, fill the shoes of his hero, Didier Drogba. So Lukaku to Chelsea is a massive deal. And I think getting Saul as a midfield option on deadline day, and importantly, preventing him from going to United, where he potentially would have been a starting level player, is a big win for them as well, for a cheap kind of €5 million loan deal.
Yeah, and I appreciate you calling me out on that, because now that I think about Scott McTominay and Fred hanging out in the middle there, it does give me
McFred.
nightmares a little bit, you know? So yes, I think we did lose
Chelsea
out in
also
the middle.
winners. Chelsea also winners
Oh,
the fact that they sold so many players and got so much money for fringe squad guys. 40 million
hmm,
for Abraham. I'm talking euros here. Kurt
yeah.
Zuma, 35 million to West Ham. Tomori, 30 million. Zappa Costa, we haven't seen him for ages, but 9 million for him. They even got 21 million euros for a guy called Mark Guehi, who I've never heard of before. So
Killed it at Swansea, so give the man some
there you
respect.
go.
Killed it at
But
Swansea.
a huge overpay by Crystal Palace, I would argue. And of course, the longest serving player in the first team squad. They wave a fond farewell to perennial loanee Victor Moses. Goodbye, Victor. Thank you for your service.
Poor Victor. Poor Victor. But interesting you bring up that Chelsea Lukaku dimension, because for me, I think the big losers of this window have been Inter Milan.
Mm.
I think losing Lukaku, they lost Hakimi. I mean, Lautaro Martinez was also kind of, you know, flirting with the idea of leaving. And you look at the ins, they got Denzel Dumfries, but I don't really think anyone else can replace what Lukaku brought them, what Hakimi brought them. That dynamic, I think, it's just different now.
Well, Inter have picked up Edin Dzeko, who is getting on in years, but given that they made a 115 million euro profit and replaced a striking position there, they're in financial trouble. They needed to sell these guys. The ownership situation meant that their hand was unfortunately forced. So Inter, they have downgraded not only on the pitch but in the dugout as well. I don't think Simone Inzaghi, that is an upgrade on Antonio Conte. I think it's a massive downgrade.
Yes.
So that's the one that stings for me the most, is actually the manager deciding to leave, because the club's future was looking a little bit bleak. But they did what they had to do given the situation off the park, and I think they got good value for the guys that they brought in. Hakan Çalhanoğlu on the cheap, Edin Dzeko on the cheap. It's basically a Balkanchi FC as well, with Brozovic and Skriniar and all these guys. So I think they're going to have fun. I think they're going to have fun this season. I don't know whether there's this sort of aging squad that they've put together of freebies is going to be able to sustain the kind of title challenge that they put in last season. So unfortunately, I think one season Serie A wonders they're going to remain. But the off-field stuff meant that
that they had to.
Selling this mass fire sale at Inter Milan was unfortunately necessary. And you could say the same about Barcelona, the obvious losers in the window. I mean, losing Messi on a free transfer when he didn't want to leave is the most extraordinary bit of mismanagement I think we've ever seen. But the Griezmann deal, we didn't know Antoine Griezmann was going to leave when we recorded last week. Back to Atletico Madrid after signing for, what was it, 120 million euros a couple of seasons ago.
And he did that whole documentary. Do you remember that documentary he did about the decision? It was like LeBron James's kind of like, and also, why are you doing that, first of all? And then the whole thing was he chose to stay and then he left, and it was just
back. But I mean, 10 million euro loan deal with an obligation to buy for 40 for a guy that left that club only a couple of years ago for 120 million is just an extraordinarily bad bit of business by Barcelona, and really puts Atletico Madrid in a strong position. I mean, they're arguably the under the radar big winners of this window, because not only did they get Griezmann back, but they've also picked up Rodrigo de Paul, who has amazing statistics as a ball carrying sort of number 8 in midfield, and Mateus Cunha has been turning heads in the Bundesliga as a really pacey, exciting forward option, the Brazilian. So they look like they're going away from the traditional Diego Simeone 4-4-2 and maybe going to something approaching a 3 in midfield, maybe trying to play a bit more of a progressive style of football, although I won't, believe it until I see it. But they've got resources on the park now to potentially win La Liga back to back.
And I think it's an interesting shift in the La Liga space and even in the Serie A space. Like the old guard of Barcelona, Real Madrid, Juventus, no longer being able to compete financially. And it's a good opportunity for clubs like Atletico Madrid to try and cement themselves a bit of a legacy, a period of dominance when they otherwise might not. But moving now to the dark horses of the window. And I gave this a lot of thought, and mine might surprise you. I think Aston Villa did incredibly well this window. Not just, Danny Ings, obviously, Buendia, but Leon Bailey, who was decent player in the Bundesliga with Leverkusen. They brought a bit of experience with Ashley Young in. They loaned Axel Twan-Deby in. So it looks like they're doing. It reminds me of what Leicester City did, trying to build the squad with smart transfers, but transfers that fit. I think about when Tottenham sold Gareth Bale and they had that massive cash injection. You remember they signed like 11 players and they all signed on the same day. They took photos together. And I mean, the only player that sticks out maybe was Moussa Dembele, who had a good couple seasons, and Moussa Sissoko, who just departed. With the two names.
I think Christian Eriksen arrived in that intake, did he not?
Yeah.
He's probably the outstanding.
He was elite.
But they signed a lot of junk as well, and the investment did not go well. I mean, like Vlad Kirikesh.
Yeah, where's like he at? No idea. But I've been watching Aston Villa's games, and I think they have a nice flow to them. They play well, and it looks like those new players. I've been very impressed by their work in the transfer window.
Yeah, I totally agree. And I think getting £100 million for Jack Grealish is an extraordinary bit of business. Obviously, he means a lot more to Aston Villa than he would to other clubs. So they needed to demand the king's ransom to let him go. But they've reinvested that money super, super well. Buendia is a huge talent who's been looked at by clubs a lot further up the table. Same with Leon Bailey, who's been linked with a host of big clubs in Europe for a few seasons now. So they've invested young and they've basically preserved their Premier League status by signing Danny Ings. He's guaranteed to keep you guaranteed up goals. And then some, which is a fantastic signing. So dark horses, I agree. I actually kind of think West Ham have done a good job this window.
Yeah.
I really like the pickup of Nikola Vlasic from CSKA Moscow. Obviously did not have a happy spell in England the first time out because he was at Everton under Ronald Koeman, who never used him in the right positions and treated him horribly. And eventually he went off to Russia and has been in something of a footballing backwater for a few years now. But he's always proved at international level for Croatia that he is a top player, a really intelligent mover off the ball, and a guy who will help create chances for the team, not only with his actions actually on the ball, but also dragging other defenders out of position and creating space for his teammates. So he's one player that could help build West Ham's play in possession rather than them just relying on transition like they mainly do now. They're quite fun to watch. They gallop forward in transition really quickly and they always attack when they can. But if a team sets up a little bit deeper against them, they're just slinging in crosses and corners, and that's really all they have. So if West Ham are going to go to the next level, Nikola Vlasic being the key creative component for them he's a good pickup. I really like it. And they've strengthened the center of defense as well. So, Kurt Zuma may be overpaid for him, but at West Ham,
he brings the vibes.
He does bring the vibes and is another threat off the set pieces. And, you wouldn't expect him to be playing for a team outside of the Champions League. So, that's a pretty good pickup for a team of West Ham's stature. So Forza David Moyes ball, I suppose.